their way back to Baltimore, and meanwhile, the Ravens are out on the practice fields getting ready for another season. This guy's getting ready for another at NFL Network and here at WNST.net. He is our beloved partner on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation and our running around in the straw hat, man.
Well, just a different one right now. No, it's had a great couple days, hitting a couple training camps. The heat, obviously, being a factor. It's a reminder of how much I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing now on the water rather than being out on the football field.
I guess enjoyable for you, as always, to talk football with football people. I have said to people in the last couple of months, it feels like the NFL went away a little bit for once. I mean, it just really feels like there was a summer around here where not a lot happened. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but certainly it gets guys like you and I that sit here and talk about it all day kind of revved up for it all over again.
With the Ravens, the other day, they had a full crowd there, full throat. They were excited, and so, yeah, we're getting close.
All right, so let's go one by one. Let's start with the Ravens and some observations there. Obviously, all eyes on number 5, and don't touch my quarterback. And, I went out and watched him slinging around, as he likes to say, on Saturday. I know a lot of fans are going to get that opportunity in Baltimore this week. They're playing down at the stadium. Other than the brace itself and the whole psychological part of us knowing he was injured, he doesn't look like he's coming back from anything particularly heinous right now.
No, he looked good, looked strong to me. And, obviously the brace is noticeable when he came off practice. We talked a little bit about the brace, and he's comfortable with it. They prefer not to have it. I remember a day when we put our quarterbacks in braces, whether they had any injuries or not, just as protection. But it is a comfort zone for him right now, so he's used to it, and he seems very comfortable. Looked like he's throwing the ball well. He's obviously anxious to get some of the receivers on the field. He's obviously getting used to Mike Wallace. He's loving having Dennis Pitta back, and we're all hopeful Dennis can indeed stay healthy. He's 100% go. Of course, they're still waiting for Steve Smith and Rashard Perriman to get onto the field.
Coach, I'm going to bring you into this as the guy who used to wear the straw hat out there and blow the whistle and run these guys around. And Ozzie would bring in veteran players. And I guess in your era, whether it was a Woodson or a Saragusa or a Shannon Sharp, the comfort level, guys who've spent a decade in other places coming into this organization, and I would say going back to your day one and Matt Burke and others, and now there's this new crop of this with Weddle, with Watson, with Wallace, but mainly with Weddle. He's out there on day 3, and it's like he belongs there. And when guys come in, no one ever comes to Baltimore and says, made a mistake. That's not a real good place to be. That's never happened in 20 years.
No, everything about the organization, from the top down, I think it's very welcoming. Obviously, you can't walk into that facility, see everything that's absolutely first class, and not feel like, okay, this is an organization that is committed to winning at every level. And so, yeah, it makes you feel good about it. And then you're surrounded by players that have the same feeling. Because these guys have been to other places. Not that other places aren't good. And it's good because it reiterates that for the players that maybe haven't been anyplace else, whether it's because they've been in their whole career with the Ravens or even young players. It's nice to have that presence in the locker room that's kind of leaning over and going, hey, man, you don't know how good you have it here.
Coach, you ran around out there on Sunday. Do you notice Weddle right away from a leadership perspective and bringing all of that season thing that has been missing since Ed Reed went away?
Well, what jumped out at me were a couple of things, obviously, on the defensive side of the ball, and we talked about it on Sunday. I had a chance to sit and visit with Ozzie at length watching practice. Obviously, they're clearly in transition. I mean, people always ask me, well, what's the difference with the Ravens right now? Well, we had an era there where there was a huge dominant presence at every level. A Haloti Ngata in the middle, a Terrell Suggs off the edge, Ray Lewis in behind the linebacking line. You already talked about Ed Reed on the back end. Well, those dominant players in each of those levels is no longer there, notwithstanding Suggs, obviously, and coming back from injury. And he had just passed his conditioning test when I was out there, so they're excited about getting him back. But there's not that dominance at each level, so it is more of a group effort. And the other thing that jumped out at me is, and it's very vogue in the league right now, it's down with the Redskins as well, where they're moving D'Angelo Hall from corner to safety to take Ladarius Webb from corner to safety. We did it with Rod Woodson years ago, kind of ahead of the curve. More and more people are doing that because the game is getting there. Weddle who's is going to be more in the box than certainly Ladarius Webb is. The game is changing suddenly.
John Harbaugh discussed this last week as far as playmakers in saying, I don't know who's going to lead this team in carries this year from a running back perspective. I don't know who's going to be an 80 or 100 or a 60 reception guy or which one of these tight ends will be targeted the most because there's just so many bodies there and there really are so many questions. I mean, most teams come in knowing who their running back's going to be, sort of kind of knowing they've got their A.J. Green or their Antonio Brown. The Ravens aren't there, which makes them probably much more interesting over the next 5 or 6 weeks, and as well, makes the coaches' jobs a lot harder trying to figure all this out during these practices.
Well, there's a lot of bodies out there, and that's in a good way. Like I said, they're waiting for Steve Smith, obviously, to come off PUP, which he will, and yet, the same thing for Brashard Perriman. I mean, they don't be that guy to take the top off the defense, and if Perriman can come back, that's some pretty good speed on the outside. The group of tight ends is impressive now. And notwithstanding Pitta coming back, which we all hope can happen, but the experience they have with Crockett Gilmore, now Max Williams, who was top draft choice, Ben Watson, and all the experience that he's had, that's a good, solid group. So you're right. When you look at the running back position with Forsett, obviously bringing Trent Richardson in, they had a 4th-round pick in Dixon. There's some talent there, but there's not the dominant guy that, again, even on the offensive guys, that you can say, okay, this is a good, solid group, notwithstanding the help of Steve Smith, and we hope he can go the entire season. Can he be that 80, 90 catch guy again? So they say it takes a village, and it's going to take all these guys to augment Joe Flacco. And it's clearly, again, going to be an offensive-dominated team as defense continues to try to find a personality in transition.
Head coach Brian Billick joining us here. He is Coach Billick on Twitter, as well as our partner here at WNST.net on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation. You can always learn more at livingclassrooms.org of all the great work James Bond does with young people here in our community. And Brian is the #1 supporter over there, as well as a Maritime Magic coming up in a couple of weeks as well. All right, so before I transition out to Redskins and Eagles, other places you've been, Coach, I want to talk about something that I brought up with John Harbaugh last week, which is, more and more, and back in your era, there were 2-a-days, and I know you were can't cream puff and all that other nonsense sometimes would go away based on weather or your feelings or how the team worked in the morning, but we're now at a point where Harbaugh has famously tried to work, or in some cases overwork, his players and the players' associations involved. What do you see in these early training camps that if coaches had more time with players in the offseason, does it feel a little bit backwards to you when you go in and see certain installs, knowing more about it than a guy like me would know, how far along you'd want a team to be at the beginning of training camp based on the lost hours that you used to have in these previous 6 months?
Well, and I've said it many times, we did too much. It needed to be scaled back, even, which I always love that can't cream puff label that we got left, because now everybody's doing exactly the same schedule we were running basically 15, 20 years ago. But I do think that we've maybe gone too far the other way. John and I talked about over the weekend. And of course, certainly a coach is going to have a perspective, and Ozzie and I talked about it as well. I'm not sure that we've moved it so far back the other way that we're really giving our players a fair chance to get ready physically, and I think that's why we have more injuries early in the season. Now, I don't know that we're having any more injuries overall, and maybe some of those injuries would have happened more in training camp, had more hitting be allowed in training camp. So in the cumulative, it may be the same. But we talked about this many times. You get into cardiovascular shape. You're in cardiovascular shape when you come to training camp. Then you get into football shape, and that's the cutting. It's the soft tissue, the cutting, the groin muscles, the hamstrings. Those get into a certain shape by the time you get well into training camp, by the time you hit the first preseason game. But you've got to get into hitting shape as well. And that takes time. And that's the aspect of it that I'm not sure we're giving these players the appropriate amount of time and space to get into hitting shape. But it is what it is. And the coaches have accepted it, and they're going, they deal with whatever they're dealt.
The Coach Billick Tour continues for NFL Network and buzzing all around the Chesapeake here, not on your boat, but I know you made it out to Philadelphia earlier in the weekend. You also made it down to D.C. to see what's going on with the Redskins. Some thoughts about the NFC East and these other camps that you've been to. Certainly lots of changes and lots of things to look at in Philadelphia.
Yeah, the thing that jumped out at me in Philadelphia was, and of course, Doug Peterson had been there before as a player. When it comes to Carson Wentz, last year it was all Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston going to start from day one, and that's kind of the MO. This team in Philadelphia is wholly committed to Carson Wentz not taking the field. Now, I find that hard to believe, and I still am not quite clear how you go out and spend $22 million in guaranteed money for Sam Bradford, who I think is a good player, that you bring in and give $7 million to Chase Daniel, transition then their first-round draft choice in Donovan McNabb. And that's exactly what happened. And, he won about half the season, and then McNabb took over. Now, they went 5-11, and I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles think of themselves as a sub-500 team right now. Even though they're making the transition from the Chip Kelly era, but they are wholly committed to Carson Wentz possibly not seeing the field.
My man Jimmy Schwartz running that defense around up there, right?
Yeah, I think they could be pretty good, and obviously it's a major change in the difference in the style of play and even something as simple as practice from the Chip Kelly era. They've got some good, good people to anchor up in there. Fletcher Cox I had a chance to visit with. Jimmy will love having him on the inside. The secondary is, I think, an okay secondary. They've got Malcolm Jenkins and McLeod back there. I don't know that they've changed a whole lot from last year. I don't see that dominant pass rush that allows you to bring just that one or two guys. Connor Baldwin is, decent on the outside. So I think they're going to be a solid team. I don't think there are a lot of great defenses in the NFC East right now. So when you look at the injuries in Dallas, obviously, in New York, I don't know where that pass rush comes from, so we'll see. I think the Redskins have a chance to repeat as division champions. Hasn't been done that for a while. I think Philadelphia will be pretty good, but in their heart of hearts, I don't know if they don't think that they're not a year or two away.
Well, it's been a little while since we've had a Redskins camp that hasn't turned into an RG three-ring circus, right?
Yeah, and that was clearly, I was able to sit down and visit with Kirk Cousins, and that's the biggest thing that jumps out. This is Kirk Cousins' team, clearly. And when, again, you talked about the Ravens, you look at about the receiving corps, when Pierre Garçon and Sean Jackson, and obviously at the tight end position, Jordan Reed really come along to be one of the really good tight ends in the league. They got to have Matt Jones, the running back. Let's see if he can carry the entire load. But obviously with Kirk Cousins, they are in a different spot in that this is his football team. And then on defense, again, they're trying to piece things together. As I said, they're moving D'Angelo Hall from corner into the safety position. And so, again, they're going to be okay on defense. Not dominant, but as I said just a minute ago, I don't think there is a dominant or really top-flight defense in the NFC East.
Head coach Brian Billick joining us here on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation, our WNST partners. And, of course, he's running around doing the NFL Network thing, and you can follow him on Twitter at Coach Billick as well. Coach, we're going to be together at Greenmount Station next Tuesday, the 9th, up in Hampstead. We'll have some crab cakes and throw around some football conversations. And I want to talk to you more at length about Denny Green and contributions. But just from your perspective, and I know I told this story, and I'll probably tell it again next week, that you and I got on a train one day and went up to New York for some business and some social media business a number of years ago and bumped into Denny Green. And I've told people of the incredible affection and inner circle the two of you sort of had that day to sort of bump into each other and not even know each other was going to be there. And the wars that you guys fought football-wise back in the day, I can't imagine when that morning comes and that phone call comes. I mean, I saw it on social media, and I was kind of afraid to be the one to tell you, and not knowing, especially in this era where famous things happen, how you find out and the grieving process. Certainly our condolences, but just a huge, huge figure in your life.
Well, just personally and professionally, there's nothing that I've achieved professionally, that I have professionally, that doesn't have Denny Green's fingerprints all over it. The opportunities he gave me, the mentoring that he gave me, to allow to progress in the profession and end up in Baltimore and doing the things that I did. And on a personal level, Denny Green was a good man. He was a good man to work for. He genuinely, not just lip service, but he genuinely cared about your family and what was going on with them and how important that was. Yeah, it was a huge loss for us. Was able to go out to the funeral, and kind of it's sad that it takes something like that to get everybody back together. But a lot of the coaches that I had been with over the years and in Minnesota, and being able to see them under obviously a very sad circumstance. But yeah, Denny was a good man. He was a good man. Big impact on my life, and will be sorely missed.
I'll tell you what, we're going to get together at Greenmount Station. We'll talk football. We'll go around the league. I know you're doing a little bit more traveling and checking in and out, but I want your best Denny Green stories. I have a feeling there's a couple that will make the next Billick book that would involve Denny, and I certainly want to honor him. He was a frequent visitor. I don't know if you knew this, but back when I was syndicated and you were coaching the team here, he was a weekly visitor on my national show. So he was sort of the guy Sporting News got on every week. So I did hours and hours and hours of radio with Denny without really knowing him very well, other than, as the guy through the television. So I want to hear some more stories from you. I want you to relax a little bit. We're ramping up here. What are you doing at NFL Network? Anything happening here over the next month that we need to know about other than just following you out on Twitter?
Well, we're currently training camp, following it and keeping in touch that way. Network does a great job. They have just hundreds of people spread out all over the country in all these training camps, and fans can tap into whatever team or division they're looking for. And then we'll crank up my show again Sunday mornings, game day first, at 7 o'clock a.m. every Sunday morning, and then during the week on around the league and inside, through all the shows that the NFL Network has, but total access.
In Hampstead, of course, coming back to Carroll County, Brian's former homeland as well out there through Westminster. Talk some football now. It's been a little while since we've gotten together, and I know I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good, man.
Take care. There he goes, head coach Brian Billick. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Coach Billick. And, of course, crab cakes. I love those crab cakes up at Greenmount Station. So we haven't been up there in a little while because of my wife's illness last year. So this would be a good little coming out party for us for football season to say hello to the coach and get back out on the road. It will be a live show on Tuesday the 9th. You can email me anytime, nasty@WNST.net, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, wherever you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.